You can start.
Hello viewers, on the sidelines of the 21st Asia Media Summit being held in Maldives, I have met a very senior broadcaster from Australia who has worked in ABC for a long time, and we all know that ABC is a public service broadcaster, and after that he is a media strategist and a media trainer who is internationally reputed. Steve Ahan. Hello Steve, for agreeing to me to talk after the whole day's workshop. We two were there. Steve, public service broadcasting is also very close to my heart, and ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, is a huge one and a public service broadcaster. Now I have very simple questions. That what about the funding of public service broadcaster in ABC, number one? Number two, the autonomy from the government side or from any other influence, or the functional autonomy that the broadcasters are going to decide or not, and what do you have as the future of public service broadcasting in this changed media landscape, Steve?
There's so much there. Let's tackle the first one about how funding is now. So to explain that, I have to go back to the beginnings of the public service broadcaster ABC. In 1932 in Australia, the public service broadcaster was started under the BBC model, so accountable to the people. The BBC Charter makes it accountable to the people of Britain through the Parliament. The same idea in Australia. The ABC is accountable to the people, not the government of the day, through the Parliament. And so every year the ABC presents its annual report to the Parliament representing the people. Until about the mid-1970s, the ABC followed the British model of a licence fee. So when the population grew, it got more money. That's a very nice thing, except that in the 70s, our government said, this is a tax, we shouldn't tax people more for media, we need to change it. So, unlike Britain, which still has a licence fee, and I think other countries similar,
Korea has a license.
Korea has a licence fee, Canada also. The ABC then still had a charter to report to the people, but the yearly funding came from the government of the day. And at that time, in the 1970s, the government really valued the public broadcaster, and it kept the funding going well. Since then, of course, we know that there are many influences on public broadcasters. You can have influence from private enterprise pressurising you. You can have influence from people who don't like what you say, suing you in the courts. And you can have influence from governments who don't like you. Now,
And the change of funding, funding
Yes.
going up and coming down.
Yes, well, in Australia, the ABC negotiated a 3-year funding deal, now a 5-year funding deal with the government of the day, so that it prevents the government from suddenly thinking, we don't like what the ABC said, we'll cut their funding next year. But the reality, of course, is that the government still has two elements to pressure the public broadcaster. One is funding cuts, which will come at the end of the agreed time. And the other one is by pressuring them on content, by public statements, or maybe even taking the broadcast,
Highlighting government policies and influencing people to public service broadcasting.
Yes, that's right. Now, I think our ABC in Australia withstands that very well, because whenever a government tries to bash the ABC, or a government tries to cut the ABC budget, then the people say the ABC is ours, not yours, and they rise up and they criticise the government. So I can't say that it's impossible that any government would cut funding. It is possible.
And what generally has been the role of opposition in protecting the ABC?
Well, it depends on the opposition. So if a left-wing Labor People's government is in, we call them the Labor Party, then generally they're supportive of public media and they generally fund the ABC well. If there's a Conservative government, we call them Liberal government in Australia, then they generally favour private enterprise media, and their view is that public service media should exist. Nobody's questioning should it exist, but they say it should exist within a tight budget. And so generally they try to cut the budget. In the times of possible budget cutting, generally people, including friends of the ABC, ABC alumni, there's a whole lot of groups that support the ABC, they tell those governments, hey, hands off our ABC.
And what is your take on professionalism, that the right kind of people at the right kind of places and the policy decisions and improvement and the transformation to stay on in the changed media scenario?
Yeah, I was most fortunate to come back to work at the ABC just a few years ago, and the people there, their heart is in the mission of public broadcasting, which is to serve the public, give them facts, give them truth as much as we can define truth, and not be biased, to recognise their own bias and seek enough different views to balance that. So the people who work for the ABC absolutely understand the mission.
And they are professionally competent.
Totally professionally competent, and they really understand how they serve the public in the true public service tradition. Of course though, when a government comes and might cut 5% of the public broadcaster, then the ABC has 4,000 staff, 5% of them have to go, then sometimes quality will drop because a really experienced news editor will be made redundant, or a highly knowledgeable producer will be made redundant. So it's not to say that there's no effect. There is, but the staff understand and they rise to fill the gap.
And as far as the influence and the content is concerned, that if the government is paying, then the government wants you to say what government wants you to say. So how do you see this?
Australians are very cynical about governments, and we will not accept that. We will call it out as not right, and the structures within the public broadcaster's mandate to account to the people will mean that the people have the final say. So any government that tries to cut the ABC is generally criticised because the population understand that the people in the ABC work for us.
And as far as the competing with the private sector in broadcasting and innovations, transformations, new technology, new content, new format, how do you think the ABC has gone with the advancement of technology at time?
Pretty well. It's not the leader, but it has other missions to fulfill. So it doesn't have to be a leader, but it certainly does have to embrace new technology and new ways of doing things. So compared with the commercial competitors of the ABC, they generally adopt new things like AI quicker, and that means they're more efficient, more lean and faster, but sometimes they're wrong because we haven't perfected the new tools yet.
And what is the market share of ABC with the vis-a-vis the competitors or private sector?
Yeah, it depends how you look at it. If you just look at it in pure ratings terms in top capital cities, you would say all the ABC outputs have about a quarter of the audience. But that doesn't tell the real story, because over a year and over the whole of Australia, all the markets, the ABC has much more usage than that. I would describe it as being like a public school or a public hospital. I don't want to go to hospital very many times, but I want to know that the hospital near me is quality, has the best staff, and when I go there, I will get the best treatment.
And there is no hidden cost and any manipulation.
No, exactly right. Yeah.
As far as the competence and changing over to the new technology, like most of the cases, the public service broadcaster has become a public service media, making its presence felt in the social media, online. So how has ABC been in that transformation?
Yeah, I think ABC has been quite successful. It's a leader in some areas. There's a content creation division in Screen, which is focusing on new media, so pushing out content to new media platforms faster, cheaper, better than the standard traditional platforms of television and radio. It doesn't mean the ABC will change from those platforms. They're still very important, but it means that the ABC is experimenting and running fast into the future to be there where the new audiences are. So the ABC has invested a small amount of money in those small, fast teams to run forward, grab the new audience, while the people in the teams who are making television, broadcast radio...
Especially the younger generations.
Yes. Well, in Australia, young generations, if they no longer consume the public broadcaster, then in 10 or 20 years' time, they will
remain with
people voting that it shouldn't matter. But if you get them now, they will vote that the ABC is important to me. I have many media choices, I love that, but I still consider that the national broadcaster is important. But if the broadcaster doesn't grab them now, then they will be lost.
Well, Stephen, in one-liner, if I ask you to comment on the future of Australian Broadcasting Corporation, what would be your take?
The future is exciting, turbulent, and we will all invent the future together as those experts in the ABC evolve into the new technology.
Thank you very much. That was Mr. Steve Ahan, a renowned, internationally reputed broadcaster who has spent several years in the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. Then he came out to be a media strategist and a media trainer all over the world, and again came back to head a station of ABC so that he has the latest information, whom I met on the sidelines of Asia Media Summit, the 21st session being held in Maldives, and both of us have one commonality, not that we have spoken in the same session of the workshop, but we are strong supporters of public service broadcasting, and we are worried about knowing the future. Since Steve could say something from real life experience of one of the world's most important and biggest big broadcaster, ABC, so I thought that I would catch him to know something from a person who has the insights. Thank you once again, Steve.
Thank you. I'm glad you caught me.
This is a very valuable thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.